Quiero, puedes, piensa. But wait, why did these verbs suddenly change? Shouldn't they be like quiero from querer, puedo from poder, pienso from pensar? Where did those extra letters come from? Amigas y amigos, welcome back. This is Profe Juan, and by the end of this video, you'll understand what stem changing verbs are, why Spanish changes in the middle of some verbs, and the three patterns you'll see over and over again. This is not about complicated grammar, as I always tell you, just how Spanish actually works. And many learners think Spanish verbs only change at the end. Like, the verb hablar. Yo hablo, tú hablas, él o ella habla. But then they discover quiero, puedo, pienso. And suddenly the middle of the verb changes too. The good news, it's much more predictable than it looks. But let me remind you first. Every verb has two parts, the ending and the stem. For most verbs, only the ending changes. But some common verbs also change the stem. That's why they're called stem changing verbs. Let me illustrate the core idea, the big idea. Some very common Spanish verbs change the vowel in their stem when they're conjugated. The endings stay the same. The middle changes. And there are only three major patterns you will see again and again. Let's start with the biggest one. From E to IE. And look at this. You're familiar with the verb pensar, right? To think. And you might expect yo pienso. It follows the same logic. It should follow the same logic. But Spanish says pienso. The E became IE. And we have more examples of this kind of verbs. Like the verb querer, want. It's not yo quiero, it's yo quiero. The verb empezar, to begin, it's not empezo, it's empiezo. The same logic with cerrar, cierro. Different verbs, same pattern. The stem changes, the end it doesn't. Now let's change a different vowel from O to UE. And look at this. We have a verb like poder, to be able to do something, And you might expect yo puedo, right? But instead, we have yo puedo, In this case, the E becomes UE. The O actually becomes a UE, okay? So poder becomes yo puedo. And we have more examples, like the verb dormir. The O becomes UE, yo duermo. Dormir, to sleep. Volver, to go back. Yo vuelvo. Encontrar, to find. Yo encuentro. And again, the ending is perfectly normal. It's the stem that changes. And there's one more pattern you'll hear constantly. Attention to this one. From E to I, or in Spanish, from E to E. So it's kind of funny. It's kind of like messy. But look at this. The verb pedir, to ask for. Instead of pedo, because it's kind of funny, it's not similar to the verb pedir. So attention to pedo, that it's actually fart. To conjugate the verb pedir, we would use it, we would change it to pido. We have more examples of this kind. Servir, to sirvo, to serve. Repetir, to repeat. Repito. And these verbs don't change to IE. They change from E to I. So, do these changes happen every single time? Hey, not quite. We have cases when they don't change. And look at this. We have yo pienso, but nosotros pensamos. And you can notice something. The stem change is not happening anymore. It disappeared. And the same thing happens here with the verb poder. Yo puedo, but nosotros podemos. And tú duermes, but nosotros dormimos. And this is very interesting. Stem changes verbs usually change in yo, tú, el, ella, ellos, but not in nosotros. Or actually, nosotros and vosotros. That's why you'll hear pienso, but nosotros pensamos. But the important part is that many learners try to memorize hundreds of stem changing verbs. You don't need to. Instead, learn the three big patterns from E to IE, from O to UE, and from E to I. Once you recognize those, you'll start noticing everywhere. A. Many new verbs will immediately feel familiar. 3 patterns, and that's the whole system. Let's do a little recap. Stem changing verbs don't just change their endings, they also change the vowel in the stem. The 3 more common patterns are from E to IE, from O to UE, and from E to I. And remember, these changes usually disappear in nosotros, and of course, vosotros. Once you recognize these patterns, Spanish becomes much more predictable. But now it's your turn. Write one sentence using a stem changing verb. For example, quiero aprender español, o puedo ayudarte. One sentence is more than enough, as I always tell you. I'll read all of your comments, and I'll help you and correct you if you need it, or hey, just like tell you, good job if you did an amazing job, perfect job. And of course, if you want to learn more about the most common irregular verbs in Spanish, watch our lesson, Irregular Present Tense Verbs Explained, right next. You'll see many of today's verbs appear there too, believe me. And if this helped you understand stem changing verbs, like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Ciao!